Would you be opposed to running a nice conduit though? Like a nice, like a half-inch conduit, those little gray conduits?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know. Now you're talking you're talking for the Ethernet, not for
No, I'm talking about for the laundry. You're gonna have to really twist up the laundry really tight to fit it
I'm
down.
worried. I'm worried about blockages, you know.
You don't think that's gonna work? Listen, we can just try it. Let's just try it.
Welcome to Backtracking, the show where two old friends take a second listen to influential bands' catalogs track by track. I am J. William Hall.
And I'm Dan Fiden. We'll be taking this journey together, providing context both personal and historical on some legendary bands. For our second season, we've picked none other than pioneering indie rockers American Music Club. J. William. We never did decide conclusively on a moniker for American Music Club for the Scripted Open that's better than pioneering indie rockers.
No, we didn't. I think we talked about alternative Americana or some sort of phrase like that, but
Yeah.
that's part of the that's part of the thing with AMC is that they don't neatly fit into one moniker.
I completely agree with what you've just said, Jay William. As always, you are concise. You just get right to the point. That's why America is falling in love with J. William Hall.
Listen, I'm not here to announce something huge, but I want the listeners to know that if you hear the name J. William Hall entering the public discourse in terms of like politics or appointed or elected, so it all started here with Backtracking. It all started with AMC.
Yeah, yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting to be part of that journey, to be on the rocket ship that is J. William Hall. People are also dying for the J. William Hall Instagram because they want to see some what they call thirst trap photos. J. William Hall, are you still posting those on the J. William Hall Instagram? Are you ready to share that with America?
Listen, there's an expression that's out there. It's something along the lines of a face made for radio. And I think that expression was probably first spoken in reference to J. William Hall.
Oh, come on. That is not true at all. Now, we did share, as we talked about, not earlier in the week, after the new year, we did a little cleanup in the house here. And I dug into trying to do some cleaning in my office, which of course led to me finding a big box of photos and photo negatives. So I scanned the negatives, scanned the photos, and then threw all that away. But as a result, I did find some really hilarious, heartwarming photos from your college graduation with a number of our friends. I sent some of them along to you. What were your thoughts?
Well, my primary thought when I saw the photos was like, "Oh my God, like, look at how much hair I had." This beautiful mop of hair that,
Yeah,
I no longer have, in my
yeah,
advanced age. But, I'm always struck looking at photos from that era too, of just like the whole process of taking a photo back then was so different.
yeah,
And, you
yeah,
know, there's a thing with the young people now
yeah.
where they love the first generation digital cameras. Did we talk about this last time?
No, we did not. I have not heard this. They love the first generation digital cameras, meaning like what is a first generation digital camera?
Like the digital, like think of your first ever digital camera from probably the early 2000s.
Okay.
They're going apeshit for those cameras and the types of photos. There's something about the quality of the photos that
Yeah.
that the young people now find very nostalgic, probably in the same way that our generation found Polaroids or Kodachrome
Yeah, exactly.
nostalgic.
Yeah.
And they're, buying and selling and trading and
Wow.
snapping up whatever these first generation digital cameras that are out there. And
Wow.
I'm waiting for some young people to be like, "No, I'm into 35 millimeter."
Yeah,
Like, you only get 24 photos on that roll of film, and you better be sure, when you're gonna take a photo, like, you
yeah,
can't just be taking photos of everything like you can now with your cameras.
yeah.
And so I appreciated seeing those photos just because there are less photos, from that era of time. Like and then of course you didn't know what you had on the photo until, a month later when you sent the film away or whatever.
That's right. That's right. Now, I have a story regarding how great those 35 millimeter cameras were. When I was about, gosh, 24 years old, I guess. I drove across country a number of times in my young life. And for all of you young listeners out there, I know you're out there. We are big with the Gen Zers, right? So Gen Zers, listen,
They love
do
us in the same way that they love the first generation digital cameras, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. We have the same je ne sais quoi. Now, get in your car, drive across country, get a friend, just do it. Drive across country. Take the southern route, take the northern route. Don't take the middle route. It's not worth it. Southern or northern route. But I did that one time. I did that with my friend Spencer. Okay, I was moving from LA to Chicago, and he decided to join me on the trip. So we're driving. I've got my 35 millimeter camera. We're gonna take some time. I was unemployed at the time, so we're gonna take the
You
time. We're gonna see the
so
sights.
basically you were a hobo. Just say
I
it.
was
You
a
were a
hobo.
hobo at
I was
the
a
time.
hobo. I was riding the rails, and I had my 35 millimeter camera, and, so we're at the Grand Canyon, we're in Las Vegas, we go to the Cadillac Ranch, we go to Roswell, we go to a beautiful place called Eureka Springs, Arkansas. We go all over the place, right? We're all over. And at some point, I want to say in St. Louis, we got stuck in Amarillo, Texas for 2 days, caught in an ice storm. All this crazy stuff. And at some point, I've got my camera, and I'm like, God, when is this roll of film gonna run out? Because I'm still taking pictures. You take a picture, and then there was a crank that you wound, like you had to turn this crank to kind of advance the film in the camera. And when you ran out of film, it would like kind of jam, right? And then you knew you had to wind the film backwards and then send it off someplace to be developed. But this is
Listening to you describe that process must
yeah,
sound to young people like when we would listen to old timers, like, "I crank up the Victrola,
yeah.
and put the needle on the record," like, good lord.
Exactly. It was a very, very mechanical old school. Some cranking this thing. And I'm like, fuck. Because they the rolls of film, you could buy like a 24 exposure roll of film, a 36 roll. I think they might have had 48. And then there was a little mechanical thing on your camera that told you what shot you were on. But if you
Mhm.
didn't know what length of film you had in your camera, you just kept
Yeah,
going.
and you couldn't open it up to find out, right? Like, because
Open
if
it
you
up.
open it up, you ruin the film.
You ruined the film. So you just kind of kept going. So I kept going, and then finally I say to someone, I'm like, "Fuck this film has been going on forever. What should I do? Should I open it up and see?" And so finally we decide just open it up. So I open up the fucking camera. I've got no film in the camera. So we'd been driving across country. We were all over. I have all these amazing photos I've taken with
Oh my
this camera.
god.
You know what I mean? And then I finally open up, and there's no film in the camera. And you know what I did, Jay William?
What's that?
I captured it in my memory banks, my friend. I don't
Right,
need the
that
fucking pictures. I don't need a
your
picture.
mind camera. Yeah, your
That's right.
mind camera.
That's right. That's what we
Um
used to use in the old days when we forgot to put the film in our camera.
I'm compelled to tell just like a quick anecdote about the
Please.
early camera days. This is going back to the 1980s. My brother and I got a Kodak disc camera, it was called,
Oh, I
which had
remember those.
yeah, it had like it looked like a, windmill, like film thing that you put in
Yeah,
there and it like turned on a disc and you got like 12 shots or something like that. And so this
yeah,
was area of the first Atari 2600 had come out, and we had gotten it. We were like all into it for a while, and we had the game Pitfall, which was one of the big
Yeah.
games of that era. And in the booklet for Pitfall, it had a thing where it said, like, if you get above some certain score, take
Yeah.
a picture of the screen of the TV
Yep.
and send it to this address, and you get a T-shirt or something. And so
Yeah.
my brother was like determined he was going to do this, and he played and played and played, and he finally got it. He beat the score. And so we got our Kodak disc camera, and we took 3 or 4 shots of it, trying to make sure we get it. And then it was like, all right, Mom, can you take us to the mall to like drop this film off to get developed or whatever? And that whole process took however many weeks.
Yeah.
We get the film back and the photos, and every one of those photos, there's a flash, like an auto flash on the camera,
Yeah.
all washed out on the screen. You can't see anything. Like, you can barely tell around the edges that, like, you're playing Pitfall, but you can't see like the score at all. It's hilarious. But like, this is something that like young people today never have to like have an experience
Yeah.
like that, because it's like everything's instant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, there it is, kids. Stories of yore, as they say. Stories of
yeah,
yore.
story time. Yeah.
So, Jay William, are you ready? We
Hmm.
we talked
Hmm.
last week about side A of United Kingdom. I think
Yeah.
the consensus is it is a frequently forgotten album, one of the
Right.
more obscure releases in the catalog. But I think we've been pretty darn positive on this record so far. I am interested to know whether our positivity continues through side B.
Mm. We'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell. Why don't we start that time right now by getting into the first song on side B? It is The Dream Is Gone, 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Let's go.
The dream is gone. Do you want another one? The dream is gone. Do you want another one?
Okay, gosh. How do we even dive into this one? I want to start with the lyrics, as is usually what we do. But for me, these lyrics are pretty inscrutable. I think that this is one of the more inscrutable songs lyrically on the album. I absolutely love the chorus, though. And I will say, after backtracking this album, which is one of the things that I love to do, as we know, podcast, that's what we do, backtrack it. This is one of the songs that I'd kind of, forgotten about in the MC catalog. But the chorus to this song and the chorus lyrics are the single moment of music on the album that has stuck in my head most after listening to this 20 or 30 times over the course of the past couple of weeks.
It's funny that you just said that exact thing, because that was my big point that I wanted to make. Like, of this album, this is the song that has been
Yeah.
echoing in my head ever since I revisited it.
Yeah, but was
Um,
this one of your favorite AMC songs, or is this kind of a deeper cut from the catalog of your personal favorites?
Really a deeper cut. Like, I
Yeah.
I don't think, like, historically I would have picked this song as like my favorite or whatever on the album, but there's something about this song. Like, again, it's a mood, and it,
Yeah.
and it there's something so singular about it that captures like the essence of AMC. And I have a theory about what the lyrics are about.
Okay, please tell me your theory.
I think it's a commentary on where Eitzel feels he is in the music industry.
Oh, okay, interesting. Say more.
I think it's sort of one of those, like, he's having a realization of like, this isn't happening. Like, and I know that during this period of AMC, things felt very, like they were going to fall apart at any time, and they had a lot of like members coming and going, and it just probably started to feel like, this band, this career is not taking off. And I feel like this is sort of like a veiled commentary on that, like feeling that sort of disillusion.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, there is definitely a through line in the early parts of the Sean Body book, which is of course called "Wish the World Away." Highly recommended if you want to go deep on American Music Club. Um, that there is a, early in the career around California, there's this earnest sense that's expressed by Eitzel that he really felt like, Engine, California were going to be these big breakthrough commercial hits. And he does start to kind of feel resigned to more of a kind of a cult status, which is interesting because this is really right at the beginning of when they're starting to get, major label interest. And there's a
That
sense among his management and the band that like once they got out of this Frontier contract, they're going to be able to sign with a major probably. So but what you're saying makes sense given the Sean Body book.
Yeah, it is kind of ironic because United Kingdom almost feels like this postscript to their kind of first
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
Because it does feel like once they get to Everclear, like label change, like suddenly things feel different, like they feel like a bigger act.
Yeah.
But I think at the tail end of this, it must have felt very kind of like, why are we doing this? Like we're not getting anywhere. And so that's my interpretation of these lyrics. And I'm probably wrong.
You know what? I found I did not find a way into these lyrics, but I really like that interpretation. Who knows whether we'll be able to ask these kinds of questions to Mr. Eitzel himself? We certainly hope to. Maybe later on in the season he would be so kind as to join us for a few minutes to answer some of these questions. But I think that definitely jives with what is in that book. But the music here, I mean, you had said it is such a mood. It really, really is. And again, this is another song on this album that I'm like, you know what? This is a absolute slowcore song. I mean, this is squarely, if some of the earlier songs were, kind of dancing in that direction, they were, prototypical slowcore songs, perhaps. I mean, this is definitely, you're starting to see some consistency in songs like this in there across their albums. And it is definitely a very atmospheric, very slow, very moody tune.
Yeah, they definitely lean into the doom and the gloom, kind of vibe on this one. And the one thing that they do in this one with the arrangement that they do on several of their songs is, it kind of like it begins just in a haze and then like they slowly kind of layer instruments as they build
Yeah.
it up. And then at the bridge, everything drops out. And
Yeah.
it's this almost like you're almost like, is the song over? Like,
Yeah.
and it, and they do that here so effectively, and it's got this
Yeah.
mix of instrumentation, like it's got a real distant wailing, dissonant electric
Yeah.
guitar kind of thing, and I just think the arrangement of the song is so cool.
It is so cool. I think that there's keys or something in the background. It could be a guitar. I don't know what it is, but there is some kind of almost ambient noise in the background that feels, yeah, I don't know. It's very atmospheric. It's a strange sound, but it when I heard it, I was like, oh my God, this song is the gateway into Everclear. Because I feel like Everclear, that is a very kind of consistent atmospheric feel on that album. And this song almost feels like you could put it on that album and it would feel totally at home.
I agree.
Now, I did want to ask you a question because I believe, I could be mistaken, but I believe there is a very subtle and totally beautiful mandolin on this song.
Maybe. The thing I was trying to pinpoint was, I think, what you were referring to before, the keyboard thing, like especially on the last little portion of the song where he's singing kind of the final
Yeah,
chorus. There's kind of this thing, it sounds like it's doing arpeggios in the background. Doo, 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 and but it's real low in the mix, like, and
yeah,
that's the thing about the mix of this whole album. It's like the songs where they're there's a lot of instruments. They're all kind of like sort of mixer in a way where things don't quite stand out real clearly.
Yeah.
And maybe, maybe that's to the detriment in some places, but like, to me, it's just, cool. Like I notice different things each time I listen.
Yeah, I just love this song, and I do think that the very kind of dark moodiness, kind of uh, I don't know, I don't, almost like everything is existing in this weird fog in the verses, and I think that that's one of the reasons why when he comes in with that chorus line and it hits that kind of high and it's such a memorable melody, I think that's one of the reasons that really sticks in my head so much because it's just like in some ways the rest of the song is less memorable from a melody perspective, but then that like completely sing-alongable chorus melody is in there and so it just man, it just jammed in my head. I when considering this song after listening to it so many times, um, I'm gonna throw another thing out for you, see if you bite. I feel like this song is more directionally indicative of the band's future than anything on California.
I mean, I definitely like as we talk about the songs where there's full band arrangement on this album, you can hear the progression towards Everclear.
Yeah.
Layers are a little bit thicker, a little bit more kind of verby atmospheric. Yeah, so this definitely, this fits into that. And I think there's a certain there's something about this song being the first song on the second side. So it's like you flip the record and you
Yeah.
start with this song and it kind of opens in the same way as side one, like Here They Roll Down kind of opens with this atmospheric kind of like, a structurally unclear song. And this song feels akin to that. And then it transitions to the next song, which has a similar kind of shift
Yeah.
as side one. So it's a nice symmetry to the two sides of the album.
Yeah, incredible symmetry between the two sides. I mean, we'll talk about this more as we get deeper into it, but I think what you just said is totally right. They start off the first side with a very slow core atmospheric song. Here They Roll Down, right? And then they followed up with Dreamers of the Dream, which is kind of the most recognizably California influenced, kind of country ballady song on the album. I think Heaven of Your Hands is very similar in that way. And then they go into this kind of basically Eitzel solo, very emotive, Nevermind, which has a complete parallel with Kathleen. So I think there is incredible symmetry in how they sequence this album one side to the next. And I love that.
Agree.
All right. So is that all we want to say about that first song? All right. Well, then why don't we dig into Heaven of Your Hands? It is 3 minutes and 1 second. Let's listen.
And all I got is the midnight shivers. So I turn it down. I think maybe I'll find myself a friend who say they understand why I waste all my time so far away from the heaven of your hand.
These lyrics, really nice. I think that I want to just quote one of my favorite lyrics in this song. I know heaven's not for me. That's something I understand. And then it goes on to a very, very sweet sentiment. I love these lyrics on this song. They're probably the most kind of on the nose lyrics, in my opinion, on the album. And it's very much in that kind of Eitzlerian, a set of Eitzlerian tropes. It's yearning for the touch of a person who is not present, basically. And I think that comes up again and again. But in this case, I felt like it was very unclear, at least to me in reading the lyrics, who is the person that he's kind of yearning for the touch of. It's not clear whether it's a lover, a friend, a mother. I think all of those are kind of viable options given what he's written about in the past. But regardless of that, I do like these lyrics, and I think there's some really, really beautiful moments in them.
Yeah, music and lyrics combined, like this is it comes across as a really sweet, it's a yearning love ballad kind of song. It is unclear, what the relationship is, but it's definitely about somebody who's lonely and missing a loved one of some
Yeah.
sort.
Yeah. So what about that music, Jay William?
I think this is another one where you can hear some piano kind of like tying it all together in the background. And
Yep.
you know, it is interesting because this is the only album I think, unless maybe some of the reunion albums where they have kind of like a piano like that. That's that glue that's kind of holding it all together.
Yeah.
It's not very prominent in the mix, like it's mixed sort of low. Yeah, I mean the effect is the same on side B, the
Yep.
moody kind of weird opener and then the really sweet love song, more straightforward kind of sentiment
Yeah.
as track 2.
Yeah, I really like that symmetry though in the sequencing, and I think similarly to on side one when we get into Dreamers of the Dream, I think this is it is beautiful in the same way. It's beautiful in a much more California accessible country rock way. And I
Yeah.
don't think any of the other songs on this album really feel as organically, kind of flowing out of the California era of the band than these two. I like it a lot. I think it's a very strong song.
Agree.
Okay, should we move on to the third track, the penultimate track on the album? This
Not
is
true.
not true. Oh no,
No,
you're right.
penult
You're right. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm forgetting.
it
I'm forgetting Animal Pen. I'm forgetting
it's
Animal Pen.
the penultimate to the penultimate.
Yeah, it is the tri-ultimate.
Right.
It is Kathleen. Now, of all of the songs on this album, I think that probably Kathleen is the only one that stayed in the American Music Club or Mark Eitzel kind of solo sets live for very long. I mean, Kathleen, I suspect still shows up in live sets. I don't know. It's been years since I've seen him, but it was very much a kind of a staple live, right?
Yeah, I think particularly for when he was doing a solo show, because I mean, this one's a showcase for Eitzel at his most sort of emotional and distraught,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. All right. Well, let's
when
give
he, oh yeah, go, yeah, play it, play it.
let's give it a listen. 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Kathleen.
When no one cares for you, well, honey, you're made of straw. Your love, Kathleen, is someone that I swear I could have been. Your love, Kathleen, is someone that I swear I could have been.
Okay, Jay William, as you were saying, this is a showcase. When played live, and certainly in this recording, it is a showcase for Eitzel and what that solo experience can be. Tell me about what you were about to say.
I don't remember what I was about to say, but I'll come up with something else.
You were dumbstruck by the music.
Well, the one thing that I thought was interesting about this was listening to the demos that were recorded in this era leading up to the album. The demo for Kathleen has this curious this bass part on it. It's like really busy. It's like it's super distracting like when you listen to the demo because it doesn't seem to fit, because this song seems like it was written like the perfect way to do it is just Eitzel and a guitar, boom, and let
Wow.
him just do it.
Yeah.
Um, the line, Kathleen is for somebody that I swear I could have been. Like that
Yeah.
is such a powerful like gut punch of a line. And I don't know, I mean, obviously Kathleen Burns and the Muse and what was their relationship and all of that. And whether this song was intended as like a direct statement to her, or he just liked her name and
Yeah.
used it or whatever. But I mean, it definitely it's a whole drama. It creates a whole
Yeah.
story, and it's very like heart-wrenching.
Yeah. So I think, we haven't talked about this too much. I don't want to share, I don't want to speculate beyond what is kind of shared in the Sean Body book, but we should probably talk about Kathleen. So Kathleen certainly is a very important figure in Eitzel's life. The way that her relationship with Eitzel is described in the book is very complicated, and it is unclear to people in their friend group or their acquaintances exactly what the dimensions are. They are undeniably incredibly close in some way. She is certainly a muse of Eitzel's in some way. They potentially were lovers at some point, although that is not entirely clear. Um, she very sadly died of a drug overdose in 1998. Um, and according to a passage in the Sean Body book, around the time that Kathleen is recorded, Kathleen apparently says to Eitzel that she's kind of sick of being his muse. And he says, "Fine, I won't write any more songs about you." And she's like, "That's fine." Apparently, when he would play this song live and she would be at the shows, it would be very upsetting to her. She would frequently leave when he played this song. As you can imagine, Joel, as someone who's inspired many, many heartfelt tunes by many very famous indie singer-songwriters over the years, you certainly can sympathize with that.
I can. And I have a memory, and I don't know if this is an invented memory or not.
Mm.
I saw American Music Club one time. It was in 1991 here in Columbus, Ohio, at a place called Stashes, where they played frequently. And I feel like at the end of the first set, I feel like he did this song, and then he was upset, and like the set sort of ended abruptly with him kind of like storming off, upset. And the rest of the band were all just sort of like, they just sort of drifted over to the bar for a bit. And could be making that up, but like when you hear, I mean, on the Songs of Love Live album, when he performs this song, it's like equally like, oh, like it's a
Yeah.
gut punch, and you can hear a pin drop in the room and everything. I mean, it really feels like somebody spilling their guts, bearing it all, like right here in front of you. And yeah, I mean, given the complex relationship that the real Kathleen and him had, I'm sure like this song kicked up a whole lot of emotions, from both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think though that this song really does kind of give validity to the half-baked theory that the Malins, in pushing for the live album, wanted to capture this. I mean, you can definitely imagine that if they released an album full of performances like this performance of Kathleen, it would give people a much more direct sense of what it is that all of the journalists in the UK who were saying that, American Music Club live performances are transformative and this is the best rock band in the world that's working right now, and all of the incredible praise that they heaped on them, especially about the live shows. This is the kind of performance that would maybe, you know, let people really understand that in a more direct way, and could have provided a little bit more of a, launching pad for the band after that. I don't we're kind of we're I'm arguing a counterfactual here, so it's obviously risky, but this is not a song that I would hear on record and as a label chief say like, "Oh my God, there's no way we could release this." I mean, this is an incredible performance.
Yeah. The thing that's funny is that, when I'm thinking about the next thing that comes, which, I don't think we're going to cover in depth, but Songs of Love Live, like that is the
Yeah.
Malins' vision, essentially. I mean, minus the rest of the band. like it wasn't the full band delivering a live performance. It's just him delivering a live performance. But this is, kind of like a trial run, of
Yeah.
that album, really. You can
Yeah.
hear just a little bit on this recording. You can hear Danny, I assume, plucking on the mando.
Mhm.
There's like the faintest little bit of guitar kind of going on, but it also sounds a little bit like they weren't really sure what they were supposed to be doing or how long he was gonna kind of keep the song going. And so they're just sort of
Yeah.
like holding the line a little bit like quietly in the background, and then they just sort of like drop out.
Yeah. 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 Well, this is an amazing song. It is if you're not as familiar with American Music Club and you're curious you're curious what it would be like to see Eitzel live and you don't have the opportunity to see him live. Of course, he's still playing live. He's actually just booked uh uh just announced the show in outside of San Francisco, opening for
Right.
opening for Tarnation actually. You
What?
can yeah, you can see that on his Instagram account. He just posted it a few days ago as we're recording. Um, but if you aren't able to kind of go and catch one of those shows, this definitely gives you a glimpse of kind of what he's capable of live, and it's pretty special.
The one thing that it makes too, though, is like the pressure that must have been building on him around this time to deliver these
Yeah,
types of performances.
I
Like
know.
it would be very difficult night after night to bring that kind of like emotional energy to
Yeah,
X number of songs every night. Like it had to have taken a toll. But that's a question
yeah.
hopefully we'll get to ask him about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, until then, should we move on to the next song on the album? Very interesting song that I think is worth discussing a little bit. Hula Maiden. It is 4 minutes and 59 seconds. Let's just give it a listen right now.
And the hula maiden said, the hula maiden said, I'll give you everything for free. Give you everything for free. Ooh, you're as hungry as the tide. You're as hungry as the tide. That's drowning me. That's drowning me. That's drowning me.
Okay, so to set the stage here, there is a story that's told in the Sean Body book, and this song is written about what's happened. So after Eitzel's father died, which preceded the death of his mother by not very long, by a year more or less, the family had a trip planned. Eitzel, his sister, and the parents had a trip planned to Hawaii. And as a result of the death and, whatever else, they canceled the trip, but it was paid for. And the mother said to Mark, why don't you just take the trip? We're not going to be able to go with you, but you take the trip. And he ended up going to Honolulu on his own and apparently had an awful time. And this song is about that trip.
Yeah, that's sort of somebody left a comment, like there's a live recording of this song from around this YouTube that I think might have been on Tom Allen's YouTube page. And in the comments somebody says like that's what they heard the song was about. It was like
Yeah.
him and his dad and I don't know who else were supposed to go on the trip, and then he ended up going by himself and had a bad time and didn't. He tells the story in the song. Basically it sounds like he mostly drank, alone in his room. And I don't know if the Hula Maiden is like, it sort of feels like someone's trying to pick him up in a bar or something, but he's like so kind of down in the dumps that he's just kind of like,
Yeah.
meh, like I'm not into it.
Huh.
And that's sort of the vibe that I got from reading the lyrics.
Yeah, I think that so lyrically, I think that this is one of the first times that I've that I have identified in after backtracking the early part of the catalog that I see Eitzel in his loungy mode. that I actually think he ends up embracing more and more through his career, and definitely gets into much more substantially when you get into 60 Watt Silver Lining and West. And I don't mean loungy in a negative way. I just think there's a certain, and again, I don't mean for this to come across negatively at all. I think it's kind of interesting, but like a kind of a cabaret, almost campiness. It isn't, but there's a little bit of humor in it,
Yeah.
but a lot of genuineness and this certain kind of Vegas scene, feel to things that I think this is really the first time that you hear that in the catalog.
Yeah, this is definitely different than anything that has preceded it. He's got it's like this kind of Sinatra crooner, I'm gonna tell you a
Yeah.
story, and
Yeah.
music is just sort of like low key, like setting the scene, and he's just kind of going.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of like I wouldn't expect Nick Cave to write these lyrics, but
Yeah.
that sort of presentation, and it's
Yeah.
sort of taking the piss out of that lounge lizard kind of
Yeah. And
persona, but it's also inhabiting it and doing a good job.
yeah, I mean, it's funny. I just yesterday listened to the new Father John Misty record, and
Yeah.
listening to it in the midst of like backtracking American Music Club and hearing this song, I'm just like, gosh, that is really Father John Misty kind of in toto, right? I mean, that's kind of his thing.
That is such a good call, and I had not made that connection, but yeah, like
Yeah.
it's a persona. It's a,
Yeah.
and it's sort of understood like wink wink with the audience in a way. It's like, I this isn't the this isn't who you are most of the time, but I don't know.
And
I mean,
who else did
because the story is a true story, so.
sure. I mean, who else did that late career was Leonard Cohen, right? Leonard
Mm.
Cohen very much got into that kind of place in his late career. Um, One of great kind of classic Eitzel lyric here. You're as hungry as the tide that's drowning me. I think that's just classic Eitzel. But the music is really kind of what I want to talk about. We talked about this kind of like cabaret thing almost in this song. I think you've got to compare this song with Mr. Lucky, Bad Liquor from the earlier albums. It is clearly a little bit more um maybe self-effacing. There's a little bit more humor to this song overall. But this song for me represents the first time that the band does that kind of thing, but that it doesn't feel like it's shouldn't be on the album, if that makes
Well,
sense.
I think part of the reason is because this is live. This is a live recording, like if
Okay.
they had tried to do a studio version of this song, it wouldn't have come across as enjoyable, I think. Like that's the issue with Mr. Lucky and Bad Liquor is their studio versions of something that is meant to be experienced live because the liveness of it is what makes the
Yeah,
song
okay.
work.
Yeah,
Um
interesting.
yeah, and I mean, I think the band does a good job here. Like you can tell it's a little loose. You can hear this is one of the songs on the album that you can hear Bruce Caffin's pedal
Oh,
steel.
and it does
And then
so much work in this song, doesn't it? I mean, it really just in a lot of ways, I think holds this song together.
yeah, because it has that classic Hawaiian aloha oi or whatever, or, don ho. I don't know what the, that sound is, but it
Yeah.
sets the scene. It creates the mood. You feel like you're in Hawaii. And then Voodie rips off like a pretty sweet solo that he seems to just be winging it, but like it works perfectly, like they
Yeah.
really captured it in this take. And I'm glad that
Yeah.
they didn't do a studio version of it.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, this is the song that should be the throwaway song on the album, but it just absolutely is not. I think it works great. I love this song on the album. It is a song that I like much better than I kind of remembered liking. Really like this entire album overall, but yeah, I think this is great. It's definitely a little bit of a departure, but I'm a big fan.
The other great thing about this song is Danny Pearson's backing vocals, the echoing in the
Yeah,
chorus, where he's like, Eitzel's kind of, lead singing, like the melodies a little bit here and there, and Danny's very steady. And he just
yep,
echoes that, the Hula Maiden says, and it reminds me of like "At My Mercy," from Engine,
yeah,
where his backing vocal, it echoes the main vocal, but it's just very steady and
yeah,
helps to kind of like ground the song.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. All right, so should we move on to the final song on this album, Jay William? Are you ready to say goodbye to United Kingdom?
I don't know if I'm ready, but time moves on.
It does, and so does Backtracking. So we're gonna get into Animal Pen. It is 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Let's go.
Giving up. Well, that's the easy part. Turn your pockets out and tear your room apart. Yeah, but you can't find anything to help you on your way. Run, try to catch the bus and reach it just as it pulls away for the.
All right, here is my question, J. William Hall. I like these lyrics. I actually am going to make the argument I like the lyrics much better than I like the song. If the music of the song. But I keep on getting this sense that this is a birthday song to himself. This is a song about him reflecting on his own birthday. Do you buy that?
I'm reading the lyrics now, trying to run it back
Okay.
a little bit. Yeah, this definitely feels like a song that is not fully developed. Like they kind of just got the basics of it down, and we're like, all right, let's just throw it down. No drums. Um, I guess that could be about his birthday. I'm not sure.
Okay.
This was the most inscrutable song for me on I'm not, I felt like I have no idea what he's talking about here. The way it's
So the
recorded is interesting because they've got everything hard panned, so like
yeah,
if you're wearing headphones, it's like the guitar is fully over on the left and the vocals fully over on the right. And it's just a interesting production choice, I guess. Um, to me it feels a little bit like they tacked this one on, but some of the lyrics are so charming and kind of funny. The big starry ass sky.
yeah. I mean, it really is. It's like, for a singer-songwriter in a band that I think can at times have the reputation of being overly self-serious and just kind of generally dour. Um, you, th- I tell, I've only had an opportunity with you, Jay William, to speak to him for a moment or two outside of one of his shows many years ago, and I certainly wouldn't want to count that for anything. But I bet he's a pretty funny guy. I mean, there are definitely moments of humor throughout all of these lyrics that are pretty undeniable. And the thing that I like about him is they're surprising.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote lyrics very different from his contemporaries, or I mean, maybe you could talk about a Father John Misty or somebody like that who weaves humor into the
Yeah.
lyrics in the same sort of way. But I mean, this is just like an odd song. You've
Yeah.
got like the guitar kind of doing its thing over here, real simple little chord progression, and him just like ranting basically like
Yeah.
throughout the song. And but it's just kind of this little thing tacked on the end of the album, and
Yeah.
you know,
So this one is interesting because we probably struggled quite a bit with the Art of Love, the inclusion of the goof rock version of the Art of Love at the end of Engine, right?
yeah.
And I think that our consensus, the consensus of two, was that it was not a wise inclusion on the album. Am I being fair in saying that that was our consensus?
Yeah, I think that was the one that I mean, it wasn't really on the album, it was a bonus track, but it created a weird way to end that particular if you're listening to the album. It's like, that's a bad way to end it, you know?
And I think, but I do think that what we kind of were in trying to understand it, there was an argument that maybe we made. I think I might have said it, like, in its defense, maybe what they were trying to do here is just lighten up the end of the album, an album that could maybe feel a little bit heavy. They wanted to kind of leave the listener with this sense that, hey, we're not that serious. You know what I mean? We can have fun too.
Yeah.
And I think that that was my read of this song. It is it sequencing it here and including it, you know, at the end like they did was an attempt to accomplish the same thing. Not, you know, to leave you with a slightly lighter feeling at the end of the album. Although I wouldn't characterize these lyrics as particularly light. They're definitely lighter than some other lyrics. I would say though, unlike The Art of Love, I think I think it works pretty well on this song. It it is not my favorite song on the album. But I don't feel like it should be removed from the album. I don't question the inclusion of this song on the album in the same way that I did, you know, for example, Goof Rock Art of Love, $1 Million Song. There are a bunch of songs like that that I probably would say, you know what, this is just, it feels out of place.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment. It's also not my favorite song on the album. I think it's probably it's the most undercooked. But there's something about the quirkiness of it that works in the context of the album because it's different than anything else on the album. It shows like a slightly different side. Like it has a little bit of the goofiness without feeling like over the top, like
Yeah.
hee haw goofy or whatever. Like the lyric odd and kind of inscrutable that it makes them interesting, you know. And so I don't know. It's an interesting choice for the end of the album. I think it does it leaves off on a more curious, lighter mood than like heavy doom and gloom or slowcore or, you know, anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I would say the only thing I question about its inclusion is, you know, the demos are out there and there were like at least half a dozen other songs amongst those demos that, you know, listening to them now, you're kind of like, wow, like that's kind of a stunning song. That could have been a real
Yeah.
a strong, you know, and I'm sure there's a reason why those songs got left behind or discarded, or maybe the band, you know, didn't work up an arrangement or couldn't, whatever, for whatever song. But I do wonder why this song over Mrs. Right, or, you know, there were a bunch of them in those demos that I was kind of like, ooh, like, why didn't they ever do a proper recording of that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. This is it's going to be impossible for us to really ever know. But there is this sense. There was a sense on the part of Lisa Fancher, anyway, that Leslie Mallon was pushing the band to hold on to some of the good material that had been written prior to this album because she wanted to shop that to the majors for a new deal following the Final Frontier release.
Interesting.
Whether that was really what was happening or not, whether there was pressure put on Eitzel to hang on to some of those songs that were on the demos, I don't know, and we probably never will know. But there is that is brought up in the book a little bit. It doesn't really explain why some of the good demos were never recorded thereafter.
Right.
But there was definitely there were things happening in the band's career at this time. All right,
Very
so
interesting. Yes.
Jay William, we are at the end of United Kingdom. I think it's fair to say that this is one of the underappreciated albums in the catalog of American Music Club. It definitely surprised me.
I agree with you. It's an unheralded gem. It's a shame that it's not in print.
Yeah,
You know, as with, you know, any of their other early albums that are difficult to find now. It is available on the American Music Club Bandcamp page, right? You know, don't pass on United Kingdom. Just because you live in the United States, don't think that this album is not for you.
that's right. That's right. Yes, I couldn't put it any better myself. But Jay William, we have one more task to accomplish. before we sign off, this is what America waits for. They want to know whether you've got the stuff. Do you have the goods, Jay William, to get the best song? No, I'm going to switch it up. The worst song. What is the worst song on this album? There is a right answer. There's a wrong answer. I want to know what you think is the worst song on United Kingdom.
In my opinion, the worst song on the album is Animal Pen, the closing song, because it does feel a little bit just underdeveloped and a little bit like, we'll throw this extra one on. Now, your theory that you said about, they were trying to hold kind of some of the better material back in order for the next, like that tracks a little bit with, inclusion of Animal Pen, because it feels like, it's a little bit of a B-sidey, kind of throwaway. Not a throwaway. That's not the right term, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I am happy to report that it's the correct answer. The worst song on the album is Animal Pen. However, I want to specify something. In my opinion, I would not remove this song from the album. I think on the previous 3 albums, my pick for worst song, I would probably, were I the producer, which America knows I should have been, were I not only 12 years old at the time of the recording of the album, I would have been a terrific producer, and maybe even at the age of 12 I would have been terrific. But no one asked me, no one looked me up. There was no email back then, so they couldn't get in touch probably. But in any case, I would have removed those songs from the album. In this case, I would leave the song. I like it less than the rest of the songs, but I still think it's a terrific inclusion. Now, Jay William, I want to know what the best song on this album is. This is a difficult choice because this is a murderer's row of great songs, but
it is. And honestly, like, I've been thinking about this in the background this whole episode while we've been recording it, because I came into the album with a song in mind that I would have been like, oh, it's definitely, that song is Dreamers of the Dream. But as I revisited the album and listened to it closely and everything, The Dream Is Gone has risen up the charts for me. And they're like neck and neck. And I feel like, personally, probably at this moment, Dream Is Gone is the song of the album for me, because I think it captures AMC, like the overall mood, maybe more accurately or something than Dreamers of the Dream. But Dreamers of the Dream is a close second. I like the Dream songs.
Well, you know what, Jay William? I am happy to report that you got it right. You nailed it. The best song on the album is Dream Is Gone. It is terrific. It is not the song that I would have expected prior to Backtracking.
I agree.
We're the best song. But after Backtracking, after closely listening, after doing the hard science that we do here every week of really dissecting these albums, I've discovered, as have you, Dream Is Gone is the best song. And that leaves us with only one thing to do, and that's say goodbye and to thank the people. So, Jay William, why don't you tell them what they should do during the week off? Tell them how they should handle the computer and what they should do for us.
This episode is going to be over in a minute or so. Immediately, as soon as you close it, you smash as hard as you can the like button on whatever podcast service it is you're using, and you leave the 5-star review, and you talk about how much you love AMC in the comments, and you also say complimentary things about our insights during this episode.
That's right. That is, you know what? There's a terrific instructions. Now, if they want to get in touch with us, Jay William, how do they do it? What do they do?
There are multiple ways to get in touch with us here at Backtracking. It's Backtracking Rocks, ROX, on the Twitter, as we used to call it back in the olden times. On the Reddit, there's the Reddit subreddit that you could talk to us there. You could talk to us just on the regular American Music Club subreddit now. Am I correct? We have,
that's right.
We have a peaceful takeover. Is that what happened?
I mean, it was big Reddit drama. So I was, been a fan of the American Music Club subreddit. It's a little quiet. There isn't that much activity on it, but there is some. And there was a very nice person whose username I've forgotten, who was the moderator. But the way Reddit works, if the moderator disappears, then the subreddit is in danger of being deleted. And unfortunately, what happened is the subreddit, the moderator of the American Music Club subreddit, deleted their account. And so there was no moderator and you couldn't post anything to it. So I had to petition the Reddit overlords and said, hey, listen, we are willing to step into the breach because we don't want American Music Club fans to be orphaned. We want them to have a safe place to go to discuss the music, to discuss backtracking and what they like about backtracking, or to discuss any other American Music Club related things that they care to discuss. So yes, there was a change in management of the American Music Club subreddit.
Well, I have high hopes for its future, and I hope to see our listeners there.
Yeah. You'll have to make a Reddit account before that happens, though, Jay William.
I have a Reddit account, but it's like what they like gave me a name, and I forget what it has. Nothing, I didn't choose it. I think I up arrowed a couple of things in there, or whatever they call it.
You gotta change that name to J-Dub.
Yeah.
Send us an email, backtrackingrocksrox@gmail.com. Listen, thank you all for listening. Next week we're going to be back. We are going to be covering. What are we going to be covering? We're going to be covering the next album in the catalog, which is of course Everclear. Unless something happens between now and the recording of Everclear that necessitates us to cover something else, which could always happen. Who knows? But we'll be back next week, probably for Everclear. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for being great fans of the American Music Club. We'll see you later.
Aloha.